Hey everyone, welcome back to The Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're plunging into one of those really big debates in anime, right?
Yeah.
Just how powerful is Goku from Dragon Ball when you stack him up against other icons?
Yeah, it's a classic.
You gave us this great source material, Goku, Apex Anime Power Levels Examined, and it looks pretty comprehensive. Breaks down matchups against 10 major characters. So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack that analysis. We want to get into the criteria, feats, power scaling, hacks abilities, speed, all that stuff.
Right.
And figure out who actually, maybe, stands a chance against Goku at his peak. We're talking MUI, recent manga stuff included.
And what's really fascinating, I think, and what this analysis brings out is that it's not just about, who punches harder. It highlights how different fictional universes have their own rules for power.
Yeah.
And, well, that leads to some pretty surprising results sometimes.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So yeah, get ready for a shortcut to getting, really informed on this whole massive power scaling debate.
Cool. So before we jump into the matchups, let's just establish Goku's baseline according to the source. What are we looking at power-wise?
Okay, so speed-wise, the source puts him at massively FTL plus UO. That's faster than light, way, way faster.
Right, keeping up with guys like Jiren, Moro.
Exactly. And raw power. He's classified as universal plus UO, meaning, his power output can genuinely threaten a universe.
We saw that with Beerus, right? That clash.
Yeah, the Beerus fight is a key example. And his fights with Moro, too, who is casually busting planets and galaxies.
Okay. And his hacks, his special tricks.
Well, his main one is Ultra Instinct. That lets his body dodge an attack purely on instinct, bypassing thought.
Super useful.
Definitely. But he doesn't have a ton of, conventional not much reality warping or complex magic systems in his kit.
Gotcha. All right. Baseline set. First matchup. Goku versus Naruto Uzumaki. The big one. Especially Baryon mode Naruto.
Right. So Naruto in Baryon mode, speed is described as relativistic to FTL plus man. Pretty fast with those big feats against Ishiki. Power-wise, he's generally put at moon level. But the big thing with Baryon mode is the time limit. It's super draining, costs his life force.
So not sustainable.
Not at all. But Naruto does have way more versatility, generally speaking. Chakra stuff, shadow clones, sage mode, Kurama back in the day. Lots of tools.
Okay, so taking all that in, what's the verdict from the source?
It's pretty clear-cut. Goku wins.
Really? Even with Naruto's versatility?
Yeah. The source basically says Naruto's got more tricks, maybe, but Goku just vastly outscales him in raw power and speed, orders of magnitude difference.
So the fight's over before Baryon mode can even become a major factor, probably.
Pretty much. The power gap is just too immense.
Okay, next up. From ninjas to soul reapers. Ichigo Kurosaki. True Benkai. Holification form.
Ichigo. Okay. His speed ranges from relativistic to FTL power. Estimated around planet level, mostly scaling from fighting Uwatch.
And his hack. Soul Beast stuff, right?
Yeah, regeneration, Getsuga Tensho, those spiritual attacks, anti-soul constructs. Dangerous in his own verse.
So how does he fare against Goku?
Goku stomps. That's the term the source uses.
Yeah, Domps, okay.
Yeah, Goku's raw stats, the universal power, the MFTL plus speed, just completely overwhelm Ichigo.
Even the soul attacks don't matter.
Apparently not. The analysis points out Goku has fought incorporeal beings before, so it suggests those kinds of spiritual attacks wouldn't be an instant win or anything.
Makes sense. Okay, so far, Goku's dominating with pure power. Let's switch gears completely. Monkey D. Luffy, Gear 5, Nika form. This one feels different.
Oh, absolutely. This is where it gets kind of wild. Luffy's speed is FTL, based on stuff like keeping up with Kizaru.
Right.
His raw power, though, island level, maybe continental, impressive for One Piece, but not Goku's league.
But the Gear 5 stuff, the Toon Force.
Exactly. That's his main hacks.
Yeah.
It's not just being rubbery, it's bending reality like a cartoon. Warping things, ignoring physics, that sort of plot armor invulnerability. Super unpredictable.
That sounds like it would just confuse Goku.
That's basically what the source concludes. Goku still wins. He's way, way stronger and faster. But Luffy's cartoon physics could genuinely throw Goku off at first. It might take him a minute to figure out what's even happening, so it potentially delays the win.
Less about Luffy doing damage, more about Goku being like, what is going on?
Pretty much. It's a clash of fighting styles and, well, reality logic.
Okay, now for maybe the biggest matchup people argue about. Goku versus Saitama. One Punch Man. Considering webcomic and manga.
Saitama. Right. Speed is FTL plus AJ, outpacing Flashy Flash. Power is described as, well, limitless strength.
The Jupiter sneeze feet, yeah.
That's the one. And his hacks is basically parody-based invincibility. His whole character is being unbeatable as a joke on the genre.
So, who wins? This feels impossible to call definitive.
And that's exactly what the source says. Inconclusive.
Inconclusive. Okay.
Yeah, because Saitama is written as a parody. He's meant to scale infinitely. If you take the narrative intent of One Punch Man seriously, Saitama wins because, well, that's the point of Saitama.
So it's less a power comparison and more a clash of narrative purpose.
Exactly. It raises that whole meta question. How do you compare a serious character with one designed explicitly to break those comparison rules? It's tricky.
Definitely food for thought. Okay, moving on. Gojo Satoru from Jujutsu Kaisen. 6 eyes, limitless, infinity. Sounds tough.
Gojo's stats are lower, relatively speaking. Speed is hypersonic. Power is city block, maybe mountain level. Strong and JJK, obviously.
But the hacks are the killer, right?
Okay.
Infinity.
Oh, yeah. Infinity basically creates infinite space between him and attacks, making him seem untouchable. Plus his domain expansion, Infinite Void, which just overloads your brain.
Sounds unbeatable.
Yeah.
So how does Goku manage?
Goku still takes the win, according to the source.
How does he get past infinity?
The idea is that Goku's sheer speed, combined with Kai-based attacks that have a large area of effect, could potentially overwhelm or bypass the point where infinity operates. Think of attacks that warp space or just too vast.
So brute force and speed eventually overcome the tricky defense.
That seems to be the reasoning. Overwhelming power versus a very clever but perhaps not absolute defense.
All right. Next, Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. Founding Titan form.
Eren, okay. Founding Titan lets him reshape Eldian DNA, summon huge Titans, the coordinate power, reality manipulation, but only on Eldians.
This feels like a mismatch in scale.
Yeah, the source is pretty blunt here. It just says, no contest, Goku is far beyond this level of threat.
Okay. So scale difference is just too massive?
Completely different leagues. Eren's world-ending threat isn't even a blip on Goku's universal radar.
Right. Now, for one, I'm really curious about, because it challenges the whole power thing, Sailor Moon. Eternal or Cosmos form?
Ah, yes. This is where things get really interesting, shifting away from just pure stats. Sailor Moon's power level. Described it as multiversal.
Right, multiversal, okay.
But it's the hacks that are a real story. Time manipulation, space manipulation, purification, resurrection.
And she can reset timelines, erase beings.
Exactly. Resetting entire universes, erasing things from existence on a conceptual level, that's the kind of power she wields.
So the winner isn't Goku this time?
Nope. Sailor Moon wins.
What?
Because her hacks are things Goku has absolutely no counter for. His raw power, his speed, they just don't matter against someone who can rewrite reality or erase him conceptually.
So it proves that raw power isn't everything. Hacks can trump stats.
Definitely. It's a perfect example of how different power types interact, or rather don't interact in Goku's favor here.
That's a huge point. Okay, how about Asta from Black Clover? Union mode, known for anti-magic.
Asta. Power-wise, he scales to country level plus, roughly. But his main gimmick, his hacks, is anti-magic. It nullifies supernatural powers in his world.
Nullifies all supernatural powers. So could that affect Goku's ki?
That's the big question, and why the source says the outcome depends.
Depends on what?
On whether Asta's anti-magic would actually work on ki. Is ki considered magic for the purposes of Asta's power? It's undefined. If it does work, Asta could potentially nullify Goku's energy attacks, maybe even his transformations, making him very dangerous. If it doesn't work.
And Goku's stats just win out easily.
Exactly. Handily. It really hinges on that cross-universe power system interaction.
Interesting. Okay, next. Meliodas from Seven Deadly Sins. Demon King form.
Meliodas, powers around multi-mountain to continental. Speed, hypersonic up to light speed range.
Got some decent hacks too, right? Full counter, immortality.
Yeah, full counter reflects magic. He's got immortality, Hellblaze demonic fire, regeneration.
Yeah.
Strong fantasy skill set.
But against Goku.
Goku wins, easily.
Yeah.
Meliodas is tough in his verse, no doubt, but he's just nowhere near Goku's universal scale. Full counter likely wouldn't work on ki, and Goku's power output would overwhelm his durability instantly.
Right. Another case of just sheer scale difference.
Pretty much.
Okay, last one. And this is maybe the weirdest matchup. Light Yagami with the Death Note.
Haha, yeah. Talk about different power sets. Light's hacks is simple but insanely potent. Write a name while picturing the face, and they die. Instantly.
So could he kill Goku? The source says depends again.
Exactly. It depends. Theoretically, if Light somehow found out Goku's real Saiyan name, Kakarot.
Which is not common knowledge.
Right. And if he saw Goku's face, and if the Death Note even works on aliens from another universe, then maybe?
A lot of gifts.
A lot of ifs. Realistically, the source points out, Goku moves way too fast. He's often not even on Earth. He doesn't operate in Light's world or by its rules. Finding his name and face would be incredibly hard.
So it's more a fun thought experiment than a likely scenario.
Totally. It highlights how specific conditions and conceptual abilities clash with raw physical power.
Okay, so let's pull this all together, looking back at all these matchups.
Yeah, if you look at the source's summary, the pattern is pretty clear. Goku generally wins against characters like Naruto, Ichigo, Luffy, Gojo, Eren, Meliodas.
And why?
Mostly due to just overwhelming raw power, that insane speed and durability that just dwarfs theirs. Basic stats, essentially.
But the outliers are really key here, right?
Yeah.
For you, our listener, this is important to remember.
Absolutely.
That inconclusive for Saitama shows the problem with parody characters. And Sailor Moon winning definitively. That proves powerful hacks can beat raw strength. That's huge.
Definitely. It shows power isn't just one linear scale.
And then you've got the depends outcomes for Asta and Light Yagami. They show how crucial the specific rules are, definitions of magic, how powers interact across universes, narrative intent even.
Exactly right. Context is everything.
So what's the big takeaway here for everyone listening? We've kind of seen that Goku, yeah, he's an absolute monster, a powerhouse.
Undeniably.
But these unique abilities, these hacks, and even just how a character is written can totally shift the balance. So now you've got the key insights, hopefully, into who might stand a chance and maybe more importantly, why.
And I think, knowledge is great, but understanding how to apply it is better. This deep dive, it shows us that judging power isn't just about looking at the biggest number.
Right.
It's about digging into the rules of each universe, the specifics of those hacks abilities, even like we said, the narrative goals for the character. It pushes us to think a bit more critically about these fictional matchups.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So here's something for you to think about until our next deep dive. Consider this. If you have a character whose main power isn't punching hard or shooting energy beams, but maybe it's like subtly manipulating probability or messing with causality, the concept of time itself, how would you even start to compare that kind of character against a traditional fighter like Goku?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Something to chew on. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.